Did you know that we're essentially being trained to be like Pavlov's dog? You know, that famous experiment where the dog was trained to salivate at the sound of a bell? Well, that's us. And let me explain how. So, from the moment we wake up, we step into a way of living that's called stimulus response, which essentially means that we respond to external triggers in our environment without conscious thought. So think about reaching and touching something that's really hot, and automatically, without thinking, you pull your hand back. That's an automatic response. But at the same time, an automatic response would be your phone buzzes or dings and you reach out and grab it without thinking. Those are both stimulus response examples. And like I said, this essentially starts right when you wake up. You get a stimulus and you respond. And those stimuli could be a notification on your phone, an email on your computer, a child crying, a thought or a worry or a memory that pops up in your head, or even just your lower back pain. You get a stimulus and you respond without consciously thinking. And like I said, this can be helpful or even life-saving, like pulling your hand back from getting burned. You need those automatic responses. But in other situations, those automatic responses hold you back or disconnect you from fully living. And so the opposite of stimulus response would be a mindful way of living. So let's imagine two ways of responding to your phone. In one scenario, it buzzes and you immediately just pick it up and look at it, potentially disrupting whatever you were previously doing, whether that was working on something at work or even worse, a conversation with a friend. You completely disrupted that without even thinking about it. And in another scenario, it buzzes and you pause and you quickly, this happens in nanoseconds, but you quickly analyze whether or not this is a time to respond to that stimulus. And that pause is what breaks the cycle. It's what takes you away from just a stimulus response to a stimulus and a pause, and then you can mindfully respond to that. To take it to the next level would be to later reflect back on your day and look at the different stimuli that happened and decide whether or not you can cut those different stimuli out of your life. Because when we're stuck in a stimulus response way of living, we're essentially like a pinball, just bouncing between notifications, tasks, and random thoughts that pop in our heads. We're essentially driven by something outside of our conscious self. So how do we snap out of that? Well, there's one incredibly easy way that takes 3 seconds. All you have to do is pause and take one deep breath. I made a whole video where I was differentiating between an automatic reaction and a mindful response, and how a pause can take you from a reaction to a mindful response. Another thing that we can do to increase our ability to be mindful is to remove as much stress from our lives as possible, and sleep and exercise are the key factors in our ability to be less stressed. Because when we are less stressed, Because when we are more stressed, we are less likely to be mindful when it comes to these stimuli. And last, but certainly not least, it's essentially taking the pause and the breathing to a next level. It would be meditation. It is scientifically proven that only 2 minutes a day of meditation gives you the vast majority of the benefits, including increased focus. If you're anything like me, the hardest part of this is remembering to do it and finding time. So let me give you 2 things that I have incorporated in my life that have really made a difference when it comes to this stimulus response and breaking the cycle. First, I learned to kind of hijack the stimulus response system to work in my favor. So what I did was I found multiple stimuli throughout my day and changed the response to be something mindful. So for example, when I end my run every day, I used to just pick up my phone and start scrolling or move to the next task of the day, and it would just continue. I would continue in the stimulus response. But now As soon as I end my run on my watch, I stay on my watch and I immediately go to the timer. And then I find a spot to sit or lay down and I do 2 minutes. 2 minutes is all I need. I do a quick 2-minute mindful breathing meditation and then I move on. And that has made a massive difference because I've noticed that as I've incorporated these little 2-minute mini mindful sessions, if you want to call them that, it has kind of bled out and I find myself doing breathing exercises a lot more than I ever thought I would. And the second thing that I've done that has really made a difference is at the end of my day when I'm done working, I put my phone away. And I know that's not going to work for everyone, but when I'm done working, I put it on my nightstand and I don't touch it until the kids are asleep. So that's one thing that I did that really seemed to make a difference in terms of the amount of stimuli in my life and the kind that I want during that time of day. There's one particular application of this idea that is particularly important, and it would be our response to the stimulus that comes from our kids. Our ability, especially as dads, because I know most of the people that watch these videos are men my age, our ability to respond mindfully as a dad is absolutely essential for our relationship to our kids. And I think that goes without saying, but I had to bring it up. With all that said, I don't know if we can fully escape the Pavlov's dog in all of us. But what I think we can do is be more aware of the bells in our lives that are demanding our attention. And once we are aware of those bells, we can decide whether or not we need them and how we respond to those bells. I mean, as always, I'm not an expert in this, but this is just an idea that I've been thinking a lot about, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about it. So if this was interesting or thought-provoking, I'd love to hear in the comments, and stick around and I'll catch you in the next video. All right, as far as gear goes for today, I've got the runner hat, RNNR. It's a company that does running hats. And then to cover my ears, I have that neck gaiter that I cut in half and just wrap around my head. I've got a Solomon merino wool hoodie. I really like it. And then underneath that, I've got an REI wool base layer. And then I've got Lululemon shorts that are very old and they don't make anymore. They don't make the 3-inch inseam anymore. And then I've got Stance running socks, Catula gaiters over my shoes to keep the slush out of it because it's a very slushy morning. And then I've got Solomon Speedcross 6 Gore-Tex shoes to keep my feet warm and dry. And then flip mitts on my hands with just normal gloves, like the sock gloves. They're nothing special. But anyways, that's what we've got for today.